Okay, so this time what I wanted to share to you is the way on how you'll be able, of course, to make a login form in PHP and MySQL. No, this will be an actual demonstration with code. Okay.
Hello and welcome to a tutorial where I show you how to use your PHP skills to create a login system for your users. Alright, so without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that you have XAMPP installed on your system. Okay, so install XAMPP and start Apache and MySQL. If you're using WAMP or MAMP, that's okay as well, as long as these two services are running. Okay, so to begin, let's go to our browser, open your browser and go to PHP MyAdmin. So type localhost in your system, in your address, localhost/php.
Pwede nyo naman siya sabayan kung naka-open yung inyong laptop.
MyAdmin. Okay, it will open the database creator for you, PHP MyAdmin. So let's click on new here and create our database. So we're going to call it login sample db. That's the name right there. Okay, then hit create, and just like that we have a database, and then we'll create a table in there called users. Create table. Let's make sure that we have 5 columns and hit OK. All right, there we go. So here we can add a few columns of our own. So the first one will be ID. The second one will be user underscore ID. The third one will be user name with an underscore, user underscore name. The last one is password, and actually that's not the last one. The last one is date. And we're done. So with date on the type here, go down here and hit timestamp. Make sure that it's a timestamp. And then password, we use variable character. Same with username. This other one, we use big int for user ID, and ID we use big int as well. So now you might be wondering why we have an ID and a user ID. Well, this ID will be controlled by the database itself, and this user ID is what we will create specifically for each user. Okay, so the important thing here is to go on the side here where it says index and type primary. Make sure it's a primary index and hit OK. And then move over. This is the ID column that I'm adding the primary index, and then make sure that auto increment is ticked as well. And then once we have that, just go and hit the save button. Please enter a valid length. Okay, so this is because it's complaining because the variable characters, we need to create a length here. So just add 100 for the length on each of these and hit save. All right, and we are good to go. Now on the user ID, since these columns, user ID, username, and date, we're going to be searching for them using the database. We should add an index for each. So go to where it says more, add index for user ID, and then also add an index for date, and also for username, of course. Great. So when we go to browse, now we have an empty database with our tables. All right, so we're ready to begin coding. So let's go to our text editor. Now, text editor, you can use any text editor of your choice, including Notepad. So I'll be using Sublime Text. You can download and use the free version. All right. So I'm going to create 6 files. New, just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each file has a very specific use case. So let me save the first one. Now, where we'll be saving these files is in drive C, XAMPP, and then htdocs. So your folder might be different depending on the server you're using, but that's the public HTML or www folder. In there, put login as a folder, create a folder called login, and then inside there, let's save our first file as index.php. So this file will be the one that's acting as our website. The second one will need signup.php. The third one will be login.php. And then we're going to need something to connect to the database with. So say connection.php. And then this other one will be functions, because we'll need somewhere to create our functions. So we say functions.php. And then finally, we'll need a way for the user to log out. So we'll say logout.php. Okay, and just like that, we are halfway there. Right, so on the index page, let's create some PHP tags here. Let me remove this slash here. Okay, so it's PHP tags like that. And then down here, I'll create my HTML tags. And then I'll say, this is my website. So I'll say my website, something like this. So I'll put some tags like h1 tag and say, this is the index page, just to show that this is the index page. And we will need a way to log out from the index page. So I'm going to add an a tag here and say logout.php, because that's where it will be linking. And here I'll say logout. All right. And then down here, I'll add a break tag. And then I'm going to say hello to the user that's coming up, username. Okay, we don't have that yet. So let me go to my browser and load. I'm going to type localhost/login, which is the folder, and /index.php, which is the file. If you can find it, just drag and drop the file into the browser and refresh. There we go. So logout, this is the index page, hello username. Okay, so we are good to go. Now, the first thing we need to do is create a connection to the database. The important thing here is if someone just opens the index page, which is our website, they should be redirected to the login page since they are not signed in yet. Now, the way we are going to do that is to use a variable called session. Now, session is a variable that can be accessed by any page on your website. So it is a global variable, super global as it is called. It's written like this, session. So now to access a session, you need to first write session start like that. So once you do that, you can access session. So you need to do this on every single page that you're using session. So which means if session can be accessed on any page, it means we can simply put a user ID in session and then simply check on every page to see if that user ID is actually legit. Then we know that you're actually logged in. Okay. So now, since we are already on the index page, we want to be able to refresh, and then it should take us to the login page. So let's design our login page just now. So here what I would do is PHP tags, of course, and then close the tags, and then do some HTML tags. So this one will be login. And then let me put some styles here, some CSS styles. So I already created some styles because this is not a styling tutorial. So copy that, paste. So I want you to see these styles. They're quite simple. So there's the text for the text boxes. This is what you type there, the height, the border, the button, and the box. So you don't need to actually use these styles. These are just for appearances. They are not required. So you can copy them if you want to. That's fine. So down here we create a div. I'm going to give this div an ID of box. And then in here I'm going to create a form. Okay, so the important thing is to make sure that the form has a method of post, like that. And then in here I'm going to put an input of type text, and the name will be username underscore name. Duplicate that and then put the next one as password, and then the type also will be password. Then down here I will put another input of type submit, and then I'll change the name to value and put login. And then down here I will need let me put an A tag here where somebody can go to the sign up page instead if they want to sign up. So I'll put signup.php, and then in here I'll type sign up. And then at the top here of the form, let me add one more div, and in here I'll say login so that we know that we're on the login page. Let me add a few styles here. I'm going to say font size 20 pixels, margin 10 pixels, and that's probably it. Now the only thing here is I need to put some break tags to separate these guys. So I'll put 2 break tags here, copy, paste, paste, and paste. So let me see how this looks like. In order to see this, I would actually need to go to the login page. And there we go. Okay, so not looking great there. What we can do to change things, for example, here I can put color white, and then let me put an ID on these guys so that they can use the styles above. And then here I'll put an ID of button, I think that is. So now when I refresh, this is a little bit better. Not the best, but a little bit better. What I could do is on the text boxes, I could add a width of 100%. That should be interesting. Okay, there we go. So now we have a login page. Okay, so sign up down here. Instead of just putting sign up, this is where the user should click. I'll say click to sign up. Oh, what's going on? Oh, I've put that in the wrong place. So it's here, click to sign up. So let me copy all this and paste, select everything, go to the sign up page and paste. The only thing we need to change is the title. So here at the login, I'll say sign up. Down here, click to login. And then here I'll say sign up as well. And then here login.php. What else do we change? The title, of course, is sign up. Okie doke. So if I refresh this, click to sign up, we're on the sign up page. Click to login, we're on the login page. So what I want though is to go to the login page and be redirected automatically to the to the index page, sorry, and be redirected to the login page. So here we are at the index page. We're being allowed to view this page, which should not be happening. So let's create some restriction. So to do that now, I'm going to put session start at the beginning here. So like I said, on every page, you have to put session start where you want to use the session. Now what I want is, first of all, to include the files that are required. I'm going to say include connection.php, duplicate this, and then include functions.php. So both pages are included. And then I want to be able to collect my user's data. So I'll create a variable called user data, and I'll say equal to check login. Now check login is a function we are going to create. It doesn't exist. So in here, I'm going to put the connection to the database. We're going to call our connection con, short for connection, and that's all we need. So on every page that you want the website to check if the user is logged in, simply put all this, including this line. This is the line that will check, and then if the user is not logged in, it will redirect to the login page. So now let's create this function, and you guessed it, we're going to go in the functions page. So let me copy that, go to the functions. But first of all, we have this con here, which we haven't created. So let's go to connections and create that. So let's add some PHP tags. We don't need to close them since there's only PHP in here. So what I will do is I'm going to need a few variables. I'll say db host. The db host is localhost. So if you're using a web server, you will need to check what the server is, server name. So localhost, db user, and db password, and then db name. So that's all we needed. So the database name is the name that we created for our database, which is login sample underscore db. So login underscore sample underscore db. The password is empty since we're on our localhost. There is no password. The default user is root. And that's it. Now to connect to our database, we're going to create a variable called con. That's where we get it. And then say my SQLi connect. Just like that. And then we'll use the host in this same order, the user, and the password. And of course, we want to tell it which database we want to access. Now, this could present an error sometimes, so we'll put an if statement and put an exclamation mark to say if not, meaning if this doesn't work out. Let's remove that, put a bracket. So if this doesn't work out, die with an error and say failed to connect. And that's it. So if we don't see an error, then everything has worked out. So let me go back to our index page. If we refresh and nothing happens, then we are good to go. So we've made our connection to the database as simple as that. So we don't need the connection.php anymore. We can close it. All right, so let's go to functions now so that we can create this function. Where is that? Sign up. Okay. So I made a mistake here where we said signup.php, where we put this in here. So we don't need this part in the signup.php. Let me copy all this though, because we don't need to check if the user is logged in on the sign up page. So everything else stays except that. Then let's go to the index page and paste this. Now on the index page, we do need this because we need to know if the user is logged in. But since we don't have this function yet, let's create it in functions. So here I'll put some PHP tags. We don't need to close them since there's no HTML in here. I'll simply say function and paste that. remove the semicolon. So this is our function. It's going to check if a user is logged in. Okay. So how do we do that? Now the important thing is we're going to use session, like I said. So the first thing we do is to check if the session value is set. So let's create what session value we will be looking for, and we're going to call it user_ID. So we'll be checking if inside session there is a user ID. Okay. So if that user ID exists, so let me put this in brackets, and then I'm going to say if is set, like that. So we are checking if this value is set. If it is set, let's check if it's actually legit, if it's really in our database. So let me set that to ID and say ID is equal to that. Okay, and then let's check in the database. Now to do that, let's create a query so we can ask the database, and we're going to say select or from the table users where user ID is equal to this ID right here, limit 1. So let's put some inverted commas here, some single quotes, right? And then what we need to do now, since we have our query, is to read from the database. So we will need a result. So we'll say result is equal to MySQL query, and we will use the connection con, which we've brought from the top there, and then we will need the query. So let's check if the result is positive. So we'll just do that by saying if result. All right. And then also we check and MySQL num rows result. We pass in the result if the number of rows is greater than 0. So if the result is positive and the number of rows is greater than 0, then we are good to go. So what we do now, check login. Since, as you noticed, we are returning the user's data using this same function, so it means we have to collect this data that we got here if everything worked out. So we will say user data is equal to MySQL fetch ASSOC. So ASSOC is short for associative array, so we'll search, we'll get the associative array from there, and then we're going to tell it to return return the user's data. Once getting it, return the user's data. So if none of this works out, what will happen is it means the code will reach down here. So when that happens, we're going to say redirect to login. So this is a comment here to remind us what this code is doing. So to redirect, what we do is we use header and say location login.php, and then let's put die at the end there so that the code doesn't continue. So it's simple. What we're doing is reading, checking if the session value exists. If not, we redirect. If it exists, check if it's real. If it is, return the user's data. If not, it will come here and we will redirect. So it's that simple. So if we go back here now, since that value we know is not set, of course it's going to redirect us. And there we go. All right, so now that we know we can't log in until we sign up, so let's go to the sign up page. Okay, so at the sign up page here, let's create what we need. So I will be doing some similar things here. So let me go to the sign up page. So at the top here on the sign up page, we want to check if the user has clicked on the post button. So to do that is to say, let's use a server as a check. We'll say server request method underscore method. If the request method is equal to post in capital letters like so, it means something was posted. So what we want to do is collect the data from the post variable, which is like that. That's where the data, user data, is going to be. So since down here in the, we named them username and password, that's what we're going to use. So username, duplicate, and the other one will be password. Put semicolon, semicolon, but then we use variables. We use a variable here called username is equal to, and here a variable called password is equal to. Okay, so I need to check if both are not empty. If not empty, because we don't want to sign up a user without checking if they've written something. Okay, username and not empty, password. If both are not empty, continue. Now you can add some further checks here to make sure that username is not a number, for example. You can use that here. You can add it here and say and not is numeric username, because you don't want a number as a username. So if all that is true, you say else here and say echo, please enter some valid information. Okay, so they can know that they've entered some wrong information. And then if none of that is correct, save to database. So to save, we create a query, and the query is very easy. We say is equal to, we'll say insert into users, which is the table, put open and close brackets, say values, and then open and close brackets, semicolon. So in here, we're going to specify the columns we want to insert and their values here. So the first column is user ID, user underscore ID, comma, username, comma, password. So these are the columns we created in our database. So we don't mind date because the database will create date on its own. ID will be created automatically. So we're going to just add these three in the middle. Okay. So I'm going to copy this and paste it there because the order matters. This will go with that. So here I'll make these variables by putting the $sign on them and password as well. And then make sure you add inverted commas because this is some text like so. Great. But if you notice, we don't have user ID as a variable. So let's create it. So we'll say user ID is equal to, now the user ID, like I said, we're going to generate a random number. So I'm going to create a function called random num and put 20. Now 20 will be the maximum value, the maximum length of this number. So you can put any length there. That's up to you. So we can assume for now, we will create this. It doesn't exist yet, but we can assume for now it's been created. So we can continue coding here. And then to save is simple. We say MySQL query. And then we put the query. It's that easy. And then once we've done this, let's redirect the user to the login page so they can now log in. Location login.php and then die. So after they sign up, they can go and log in now. Now we have to create this one, otherwise it will default to 0. So let's create this function, and since all functions reside in the functions page, that's where we will go. So let me copy the name of the function so that I don't get it wrong. And here we have one function in here, so let's go down here and create another one and say function, like that. Now instead of putting in a number, we'll say length. So this will determine how long the number is, but not really, it will be the maximum. So I'm going to say text is equal to empty. And then I'm going to check if length, just as a precaution, if length is less than 5, then length is equal to 5, to make sure that it's never less than 5. And then after that, we're going to say len, another variable, is equal to rand 4, length. So what I'm telling it is that assign a variable. This is how you get a random number between 4 and whatever that number is, which is maybe 20 in our case, between 4 and 20. So that's why we make sure that it's not less than 5, because otherwise if I put 0 here it will cause an error, because this number should be smaller than that always. So len is the new actual length now. Okay, so I'm going to say 4. So that's a for loop right there. So the for loop will end with len, like so. So in other words, this will repeat the number of times that we've gotten here, this random number we've gotten here. I did this because I don't want all user IDs to be the same length, so I want it to be a random length. So each time this happens, we add to text and say text dot equals another random number that will be between 0 and 9. And then, not to forget, let's return this value, which is text, whatever we come up with at the end. Okay, so that's the entire function there. It's good to go. All right, so let's go back and create a user. So I'm going to create a user with that name, and then I'm going to put 1234 as the password and hit sign up. And then I've been redirected to the login page, which means it probably worked. So let me go to the database to see if things have been saved, and I see that nothing has been saved. So let's go back to the sign up and see what exactly is wrong with our sign up page. So what could be wrong? Not is numeric username, so possibly here. So what I will do is remove the header so that if there are any errors, we will see them without being redirected. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and there we go. So query expects at least 2 parameters on line 21. So let me go back here. So line 21 here. So what I forgot is to give the connection. So I need to give a connection. So I'll say con like that, and we are good to go. So let me put back this because it's going to work this time. So let me put the name 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So let's browse here and see. And there we go. So we have one record with a user ID, name, password, and so on. So this is good to go. All right. So let's go back to sign up. Let me make 2 users. The other one I'll make Mary, and 1, 2, 3, 4, sign up. Back to the login. So if I browse again, you see now that we have 2 users with 2 user IDs with different lengths. This is awesome. All right, so now let's try to log in and see what happens. Now, since we don't have the code for logging in, let's go to the sign up and copy everything in here because it's pretty much the same. So let me copy, go to the login, and inside the PHP tags, paste. Okay, so the only difference here is this is the same. We're getting the data from there. And we have to check as well that it's not numeric. So everything here remains. Only difference is here we're going to read from database. Read from the database. And we don't need to create a user ID. And then we need to change the query now to something else. So the query will read as follows. Select or from users where username is equal to username. So we are comparing if this username supplied by the user is the same as any username in the database. Then we'll continue with limit 1, so we get only one result, and make sure you put your inverted commas on that one since it's text. And then we're going to read from the query. Now we need to get the result of this, so I'm going to put result is equal to, like that, and then we will check if the result is good. And then since we are logging in here, if everything is good, we're going to be sent to the index.php page. But first of all, let's check if everything is fine. So to check, we're going to say if the password. So here, the only thing we've checked for is the username. So if the username is correct, good. But now let's confirm the password. So in order to do that, I'm going to check if the result was successful first by just saying if result. And then like I did in the functions here, let me go up here. I checked for this. So I want to check this. It's going to be the same. Let me go to the login and paste. Then let me move all this in there. So if result and the result is greater than 1, at least we have one result. So what we will do, if that's true, we will get the user data here from there. So now what we want to do, instead of returning, because this is not a function, so we can't use the return, we want to check if user data, the user data's password is the same as our password that the user has supplied us. So if this is true, then we cut this and redirect to the index page. Now before we redirect, now keep in mind that the check login will check for whether this session ID is set. So let's copy that, go to login, and then assign it now that we are confirmed. So the session ID will be equal to the user data. Remove this semicolon here. User data's user ID. And then redirect. So just like that, we have successfully done it. So let me try and see if it actually worked. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. First of all, let me put something bogus and type in. And let me come back here to the login page. I want to echo here, please enter. I will put it here as well. And then let me try again, put some wrong password, and then I'll say please enter some valid information. Now instead of that, what we want to tell the user is wrong user name or password, like that. So let me come back, try again, refresh. Okay, so wrong username and password. But when we type in the correct thing, voila, we're in the login page. Now down here, it has to tell us who the username is that is logged in. So to do that, we will go to the index page. And right here where we're saying hello username, remember that if the user is not logged in, they will be redirected. If they are logged in, this user data will contain their information. So we can simply come here and use PHP, open PHP tags, and then echo out their name. User underscore name, like that. Don't forget to close the tags. And if I go back here and refresh, so you see the name there. Now we haven't created the logout yet, so I want to be able to log out. So that's where the logout comes in here. Now to log out, as you remember in the functions, when we are checking for the login, we're just checking to see if this value is set in the session. So if we unset it, then we've logged out. So let me put some PHP tags in logout, and I will need session start, obviously. And then I'm going to check if it's set, because you don't want to unset a value that's not set. So you check if it's set and then unset it. Just like that. And then we redirect the user. So we'll put it down here so that whatever happens here, we still redirect. Location. We're redirecting to the login.php page. We don't need to put die, but it's a habit. So everything is done now. Everything should work. So let's give it a drive. So let me refresh and log out, and there we go. So let me log in as Mary now. 1, 2, 3, 4, log in. There we go. Hello, Mary. Log out. Let me log on as somebody else. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have it. Okay, so everything is working as required. So I hope you've learned something new in this tutorial, and I hope you like it. So give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos, and I will see you in another tutorial.